Hey folks, I know it's been a while since I've made a video, but I wanted to show you my new trailer design, my second prototype on a multi-purpose trailer that we can use to haul, in this case, the paddleboard that I made this summer, a kayak, a small canoe, or it doubles as just a bike cart, or it can be used around the place as a garden cart. So let me get this thing off and I'll show you, kind of take you on a little tour of how I built it. I just ran a couple straps around it. I used some of this closed cell foam to protect the finish on it. And as you can see, there's noodles underneath there that I use to protect the surface. So let me just get this thing put away and I'll take you on a tour of the cart here. I used two of the large noodles and I just cut a slit in them just using my Japanese saw. So we'll just take these off and then I'll take it off the bike. So this is my 99-cent seat post hitch that, well, I can't say it's 99 cents anymore because the price has rocketed up to $1.49, so $1.50. But it works really slick. So all it is the 1/2-inch thimble that you can buy, and they look like this when you get them. And I'll do a separate video on how to make this and how to attach it to your seat post. That's kind of beyond the scope of this video, so we'll do that later. But once that detaches, then we can take the tongue off the cart. That's another innovation that really helps it to become a multi-purpose cart. With the cart disconnected from the bike, we have a cart with a tongue on it that we want to remove because we're not going to use it as a bike cart at the moment. Although this would make a nice bike cart if you're not hauling a watercraft, if you just want to use it to haul groceries from the store or whatever. But what I have that's different from my first prototype is I have a wing nut here that cinches down this piece of metal strapping over that slot, and then into the wall, the front wall of the cart, I have a wing nut that attaches with a 1/4-inch carriage bolt to a piece of, this is just a piece of 1/8-inch by 3/4-inch metal strapping that I just bent in the vise to a 90-degree angle. So that fits right over the front of the cart like that. So now we have a tongue that we can remove. And now quickly I'll show you the hitch. So what I did is I just cut a slot in my wood at the end, and I used that same 1/8-inch metal, and I drilled a 1/4-inch hole, and then I drilled 2 1/4-inch holes and affixed them with nuts and bolts. Actually, that's probably a number 10. And then that just slides into our thimble on the seat post. So I wanted something that didn't involve bending conduit. That first prototype I had, the tongue was conduit that had a couple bends in it, and then you had to crimp it down at the end for attaching to the bike. And then I think the handle was actually a piece of curved conduit, you know, with a 90-degree bends in it, and I thought that gets a little complicated for folks. I wanted to keep this one simpler, and so I just use wood. And these are just attached with carriage bolts and wing nuts, so these are removable too. If a person wanted to put this in the back of a vehicle and take it on a camping trip, the whole handle comes off. And then the handle part itself here is just a piece of 1/2-inch conduit, and I ran a piece of 1/4-inch threaded rod through there with just some nylock nuts on the ends that hold it in place. I countersunk 11/16 holes, only about a 1/4 inch in on each side, so the conduit will set nice and secure in that handle. So it makes for a good solid handle. And I made it flush with the top of the cart because that's about the right height for me, and it also then doesn't interfere with hauling a watercraft on top of the cart. You'll notice it sits up like this. Well, when the tongue is on there, it sits down like this because there's more weight in the front. So I wanted to remedy that so I could put my paddleboards on while it's sitting fairly upright and not sitting down like this. So I wanted to come up with some kind of a stand. And I'll zoom in on this. It's a little hokey, but it works. So here's what I came up with for my stand, just to hold the thing fairly level while I load it. And all it is a piece of 3/4-inch PEX waterline attached with 3/4-inch straps, and then I just cut a little of that, the scouring pads, the green scouring pads. I cut little strips of those to put on top of the brackets, because otherwise this thing is going to move, and I can't drill a hole through it to secure it, and that just gives it the right amount of friction that it's not going to slide up and down. So these are just affixed, screwed into the frame of the cart on the bottom, and then just with number 10 bolts on the side. So there's just a pin here, and it slides down, and there's an up position and a down position. And so I drilled 2 holes, and you have to line the holes up and stick the pin through. So now it's in the down position, and I'd probably solder a cap on the end of this 1/2 inch, because every time if I try to load this thing, it keeps digging into the dirt, and pretty soon the soil is up so high that it's blocking my up position hole. So again, not ideal, but it's a quick and easy way to have a lightweight, inexpensive hitch or a kickstand. So just a piece of 1/2-inch copper. 1/2-inch copper slides almost perfectly inside 3/4-inch PEX tubing. Now the last one I built had tubing on each side on the inside secured, and that was a little cumbersome. And somebody actually suggested, why don't you put a bike kickstand on there, right? A bike kickstand right here, and I actually toyed with that. I have one, but it was a little heavy, and a big bolt that would have to go through and all that. It was just a little too much for this. So that's my quick fix for a temporary stand to hold this thing fairly horizontal while I load a paddleboard on it. For those who are interested, I cut a slot that's 11/16. I just cut this on the table saw, and then I just fashioned this little bracket that slides over and then is fixed with this wing nut, and that secures it to the 1/2-inch conduit handle. And then again, this end attaches to the body of the cart. And because it's just thin plywood, I glued a little block of wood on the inside that attaches to. So my first prototype, I used bicycle wheels. And again, it's a little cumbersome to attach bicycle wheels because you have to put an outside rail to attach the outside of the axle. So they're cheap. You know, you get them for next to nothing, but I wanted to go with something that most people can do easily. So I sprung for these Marathon. They're the solid, they're the flat-free solid wheels, the 20-inch wheels. They come with a 3/4 inch and a 5/8 inch bearing, wheelbarrow bearings. And I opted for the 5/8 so I could use a 5/8 inch axle because it's a little cheaper and a little bit less weight, not really that much, but it's not a heavy-duty cart. We're not going to haul 200 pounds in this thing, although I bet you could. So the way I attach the axle to the bottom of the cart is I took a piece of 2x4 and I trimmed it down to just an inch. And then I cut on the table saw, I cut a channel through that would just fit that 5/8 inch axle. And then I used construction adhesive, and then I screwed from the inside, I screwed it down to secure it so that this is permanent, it's not going to come out. But the axle's removable. So all I have to do is pull these cotter pins out and the whole axle will slide out of that channel so you can take the wheels off. So that's another feature that's nice if you're going to go camping with this thing and you don't have a lot of room. You can take the wheels off and the axle off, and it's a lot more compact. Now these wheels, as opposed to 26-inch air-filled bicycle wheels, are a lot noisier, rattlier, not as smooth of a ride for sure, but I think it's a decent trade-off. They're okay, they're good, they seem to hold up pretty well. They were like 30 bucks a piece. I think I got them online. So with shipping and everything, it was, I don't know, 60 bucks, something like that. So they work okay. What else are we going to look at here? Oh, the spacers, I cut the axle, total length of the axle, I didn't cut it, 3 feet. And so I just used 3/4 inch PEX water line as a spacer. So that's about a 1 inch spacer between the outside of the cart and the wheel. And then I just used a washer on the outside of the wheel, and then I drilled a hole for just a cotter pin. So simple, it works. So this is the wheel attaching to the cart. And you can see that spacer in there. Right there. With the 20-inch wheels, you know, it sits at an angle. It's a little like a rocket taking off, but not as bad as it would be if you're using 26-inch bicycle wheels. So you don't always need that goofy stand. So on the back, I wanted a removable tailgate. So this just slides off. I just made a channel using strips of this 5mm plywood, and I'll tell you about the plywood here in a little bit. And on each side, and then so the tailgate itself is just a piece of this plywood, and then there's a rabbet joint. On all my framing, I just used lath, just 1.5 by 3/4 inch lath. It was really nice, straight, good quality. So I just cut a rabbet joint and then just glued them to the edges of the plywood, and I did that on the top, bottom, and sides of the side panels, and then on the end panels I just did them on the top and the bottom. And then the trailer, or the tailgate, then it's right in those slots, and then to keep it from splaying out and keep it in place, I just bought a couple of these corner brackets and screwed them to the top. Here I think I probably had to drill another hole, but I just screwed them down to the top. So that's kind of it. It works really well. As a watercraft, a kayak trailer, paddleboard trailer, as a bike cart for hauling whatever you want to haul behind your bicycle, or it's just a around the place garden cart. You know, I don't know what its capacity is. I'm certain I could hop inside and it would be just fine. I just don't know that my little kickstand would hold me. It'd probably bury itself a foot in the ground. Well, let's take a look at those paddle boards before I let you go here. So this is paddleboard number 1. This is my first prototype. It weighed in at 55 pounds. Too heavy. So, well, it's not too heavy. I mean, it's kind of too heavy. I mean, it's not one that mere mortals are probably going to fling over their shoulder and take down to the lake. But it's a nice stable craft. It works really well. But I framed this internally. This is framed with 1/2-inch plywood. And then it's the 2-inch foam board, the pink board, doubled up. And it is skinned with the 5mm Integra-Ply, which is the same thing I used for building the cart here, which I neglected to show you. I'll show you here in a minute. I wanted to get the weight down a little bit on that, so this next one is 8 pounds lighter. This one, I mean, it's 47 pounds, which is those roto-molded, those plastic ones that you buy. They're about that anyways. So this is framed on the inside with the 5mm Integra-Ply. And then it is skinned with 4mm Okume, which is a marine plywood. Very lightweight, very strong, very attractive. But it's also kind of expensive. I paid 85 bucks a sheet for it, and I had to drive to Superior, Wisconsin to get it. I actually bought it for a canoe that I'm going to redo, but I haven't gotten around to that, and I stole the wood for this project, so now I have to get more. Anyways, this one, I really like this design. It's light enough, but it's a substantial craft. Sure, you're going to get by those blow-up ones, and they're going to be half the weight or less, but are they going to last as long? I kind of doubt it. Anyways, this is on the bottom. I can show you. I bought I don't know if you can see this. I bought those brackets that they use for the inflatable stand-up paddle boards. And the nice thing about them is they've got a removable fin. So I can take the fins off. I can trailer them and transport them without the fins. So, enough about the paddle boards, because I'm going to do a whole book on how to make these. And that'll be a down the road over the winter deal. But here's the Integra-Ply, which is a underlayment, sold as an underlayment, made in China stuff. So this is some of the older stuff, and the newer stuff is much nicer. That's what I used for that. Was the newer stuff is actually very attractive. And it has an exterior glue. It's very lightweight. And as long as it's protected, I think we do okay. With the paddle boards, they're fully encapsulated in fiberglass cloth and epoxy resin. So there's not a danger there. And stuff better hold up, because I built an 18-foot sailboat out of this stuff. But anyways, it's like 5mm, fairly lightweight, has like 0 strength. You can snap this stuff. It's not that strong, but when you reinforce it, it's fine. So it's perfectly good for a cart or for anything that's going to be entirely covered with fiberglass and epoxy. So it's about 35 bucks a sheet. I got this at our local Menards building supply store. So I neglected to tell you the dimensions then of this cart. Because I'm using this to haul watercraft, primarily stand-up paddleboards, behind my bicycle using a seat post hitch, I needed a height so that my tongue would be the appropriate height for the seat post hitch. So that's why the sides are as tall as they are on this. So it's 22 inches total height. And the width, outside to outside, is 28 inches. And then the length is 40. So 22 high, 28 wide, 40 long. And that gives us quite a bit of volume in there. Like I say, I had a bale of straw in there that, you know, I pulled like it was nothing. It really was nothing, but you could haul a few of them in there. Stack them up and stand them up, and you could haul a couple, 3 of them at a time. So it'll haul quite a bit of cargo. All right, I'm done. As I go from no videos to just blah, 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 rambling on. But until next time, this is Mark again with Backwood Basics, and let's grow together.